Commissioner Dodd? Here. Commissioner Davidson?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner Boyd?
Here.
Commissioner Irvin? Here. Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Chairman McAdoo?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes, Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I have read over the minutes, and there were some changes, but we have an updated copy of the minutes, and everyone should have received that, and they are correct, so I move to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda, 20 North update. Adam.
So, Commissioners, we have completed the project after a couple weeks of back and forth. I mentioned last month that we were working through a punch list, and we had some issues that we were trying to get resolved. We feel confident now, all parties involved feel confident that we have those issues resolved. Everybody seems satisfied. I have some pictures here to show you. I have some east, west, and some south pictures. And I want to thank the guys over at GIS for flying up and getting these pictures for y'all to be able to, get a better view of what it looks like now. And I have some interior pictures as well. And I just want to remind you that there's a manufacturer, a 10-year manufacturing warranty through Pella, and the contractor stands behind the installation for 1 year. That completes the report on the window replacement project at 20 North.
Any questions on 20 North update? No questions. So next on the agenda, one stop update.
Okay, so the roof is ongoing. Fascia, soffit is about 70% complete. Siding is ongoing, roughly 90%. Interior walls, doors, glass ongoing, roughly 75% complete. The HVAC duct, the interior cassettes, they're complete in the county's portion of the one-stop. We're waiting on some concrete pads to be poured for the outside units to be brought in and set. Low voltage trim out is ongoing. Ceiling lights, sprinkler trim out is almost complete at 90%. You can see there that all the grid is in. They now have fixtures and lighting. Yeah, so the contractor anticipates the exterior doors by the end of next week, and that he hopes to have the building secured by the end of next week. Site concrete is ongoing. It's roughly at about 50%, but the weather has really been giving them fits out there as far as being able to get any concrete in there to finish the site concrete. Now I'm going to move over to the DMV portion. They've completed that pad. The interior framing is roughly 90% complete. The door frame rough-in is 100%. Electrical rough-in is at 75%. Plumbing rough-in is at 50%. Sprinkler lines are ongoing. And that completes my report on one stop.
I got a question. Do you have an estimated completion date on one stop?
They extended it to May the 1st, and they approved that extension.
Please stand that's in the audience. Do you have anything to add to on One Stop project? I think we're gonna take care of that later on in the meeting. Harry, you have anything on One Stop, overrun, or?
No, sir, thank you.
Anybody got any questions on One Stop? I think we'll be discussing it maybe later on in the agenda anyway, so. Okay. Next, public health and safety buildings update.
Okay, so we'll start at Rockville. The exterior glass is ongoing. I know last month we were having some issues getting that glass in, so it came in, they jumped on it. We're roughly 75% on the glass. Fascia and soffit is ongoing. Masonry and lap siding is at 90%. They anticipate that complete by the end of next week. They just have some minor window and door trim out from where they're setting the glass. We're awaiting electrical and plumbing final inspections. Interior walls, final sand and paint is now at 100%, pending some touch-up. Interior floors are at 90%. There are a few epoxy top coat finishes that are ongoing in some wet areas. Electrical fixtures are at roughly 80%, plumbing fixtures at 50%, millwork and cabinetry. You can see you're looking into some living quarters on the right, and then you're looking in your into the kitchen area there on the left. And so that was yesterday or the day before. They were in there setting the cabinets, getting ready to cut the countertops. Low voltage is ongoing. The FF&E package has been scheduled for delivery. Those vendors will start delivering those to the site next week. We actually had one delivery this week already. It was some furniture. It was some beds and mattresses for the living quarters. Site concrete's now at 100%. And the only thing they're really waiting on the site before they can start backfill and grade is the asphalt, and they haven't been able to work. With the soils, similar to the situation out at Blackman because of the weather. That completes the report on Rockville. So, as we move over to Kittrell. I don't remember if last month the CMU walls were complete, but they are complete at 100%. The structural and light gauge trusses are now at 100%. Obviously, you can tell from the picture they're moving right along. Metal stud framing is at 100%. Roof decking is at 90%. You can see they're working up there on the ridge right now. Contractor has begun laying shingles. If we can get to the rear, there. So they're already laying shingles right now. They hope to have that roof dried in here by the end of next week. Stone masonry walls are ongoing. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing rough-in is ongoing. You can see they're in there installing some pipes, some sprinkler lines, and some electrical. That was about 2 days ago. So obviously, site utilities are ongoing as well. That completes my report on Kittrell.
Okay. I still see it blinking. Yeah, I don't know. Is that all you have on the public health and safety buildings?
Well, and unless Mike wants to touch on the other sites.
I did not have any updates, Chairman.
Any questions on public health and safety buildings?
Adam, I might have missed it.
Chairman?
Is there an update on completion for Kittrell
when we may be in that
Yes, they're looking at April for Kittrell.
this year?
Yes,
Wow, thank you.
yes.
Other questions? Not move on to Singer Road discussion.
Commissioners,
House,
Mayor, you want me to take?
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have, I believe this is the brick house on Singer Road and Florence Road, correct, Mr. Chairman? Is that what we're referring to?
correct.
Thank you. So, as everybody knows, we have, Adam, correct me here, we have about 19 acres of really unique property on Florence and Singer Road, because this was the property that was in question with regard to the LOI on Pratt. Come to find out, a recycling center and anything to do with solid waste removal doesn't require a railroad spur, but at the same time, a railroad spur is such a unique and valuable item within the commercial industrial community. Rutherford County is very fortunate to own this particular piece of property. And I think it's important that Rutherford County value this property appropriately and leverage it for its best purpose. To that end, we have and Adam, I don't know what the square footage is, but it looks like about a 1,600 square foot brick home, plus or minus. Would that be accurate?
Close.
And it's been out there for a while.
Several years.
And again, correct me, but I believe we still have electrical power to that particular house. We do not, have we cut that power? Excellent. So we've cut the power. But what we want to do in preparation for making best use of this property, what I would propose for the committee to consider is the sale and removal of the that brick house, because ultimately, while it still has maybe some value, the county could realize its value, get it off the property. And it also removes some of the liability that's potentially there because of the indigent or homeless population taking up residence and then creating further liability and then potentially reducing its value because of damage or things of that nature. So what I am requesting is the committee discuss and consider the selling and the removal of the house in anticipation for the best leverage use of this property because of the railroad spur. That is not a motion. The mayor does not make motions, the mayor does not make seconds, and the mayor does not have a vote. That is a suggestion to the committee to consider for debate, and I leave it with you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mayor Carr. I was going to bring this very same thing up. You beat me to it. That was going to be my proposal, that we would sell the house, not the land, but sell the house for removal. And I'd put that in the form of a motion.
Motion to sell the house, do I hear a second? I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah, we can add to this, but
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, but we'll go ahead and get the motion on the floor to sell the house, if I can get a second.
I'll second it,
Got a second from Commissioner Irvin.
and then I have questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Could you pull it back up and show us exactly where, kind of the boundary? And then I noticed there's also a barn back there. Is that part of the county's?
Yeah, it's two parcels. If you'll see the outline in red. Actually, the county owns 3 parcels there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they own
But the
this parcel,
structures
this
are on
parcel.
2 parcels.
Actually, we own 4 parcels right there.
Okay, could you kind of highlight them just?
This is the house that he's talking about right here. So it's this parcel. If you could see my hand cursor right there, this parcel here, this one that the brick house is on, and then this tract right here. This used to have a trailer on it several years ago, but it's gone. There was a house here. This was auctioned off and removed a few years back.
Okay, and is the proposal to take the barn down also?
Correct.
And what's the cost to take them down, or is that just, we're going to say, come and get it?
Right now, we're just talking about the sale of the house. I'm pretty sure we're gonna talk about removal of the other 3 buildings.
the clarification on the motion is to sell the house
Correct.
and with the understanding it's to be removed. It's not affecting any of the rest of the property. It's just getting rid of this liability that we've had so long. And to add to that, I'm not sure, but looks like the way the power line has been moved, I don't think the house could be inhabited as far as to rent it out anyway.
They
We're not in
actually,
real business.
But the point is just to sell it
Yeah.
and for someone to move it.
Chairman?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, I'm sorry, Mayor. I'm sorry, Mayor first.
I want to make sure, right now, our discussion is just with regard to the home, the house, the
just
brick
sell
home,
the
correct?
house
We're
right-
not talking
for right
about the
now.
two barns at this point. Thank you.
Not
When we get to that, I have
Yeah,
some information might be relevant.
well, and right now, the motion is just to sell the house. We can bring up on the other, we got 3 more outbuildings down there, and we will probably discuss them later. But right now, just sell the house. Commissioner Dodd?
Thanks, Chairman. Just to want to follow up, how do we, I support this, I'm going to vote for it. Do we need to discuss what method to sell it or pass the motion and then talk about,
We can
do we
pass-
auction it, do we list it, do we?
I was gonna bring it up, and you was on the committee. We sold the house like once before like this. And the way we sold that house, we had an auction. And highest bid won the auction, and we gave them a deadline of when to move the house. On that first house reason, we went over the deadline because the one that bought the house became seriously ill and asked for a little more time in moving the house. And at that time, we didn't have no problem with it, and so he moved the house.
If I may, we're fortunate to have Mr. Stan Vaught, who has some experience in this in the audience, who could add some wisdom, and also Nick Christensen's here if there were any legal things that they might be able to address.
Yeah.
But I think what the committee is saying vis-à-vis the motion is to sell the house to the highest bidder for purposes of removal. Would that be accurate?
Correct. That's
That
correct.
is correct.
Okay.
And
That's correct.
I think you remember the last time we did this, we had an auction.
That's right. And
Remember
I
that?
didn't know if Deputy to the Mayor Sandlin auctioned it. I don't recall the specifics,
To the mayor, Sadler, and auctioned it off.
which we don't have that
I think that was
relationship.
through, Bar Parks, a part of
Yeah,
it.
I don't recall, yeah. So, again, I don't want to disrupt this clean motion. If we need to discuss our means and methods afterwards, I'll call for the question, and then we'll decide how to do it.
Well, I would like to go ahead and call for the question. We have a deputy mayor back there. We can put it in his hands to bring back to us of how we want to do this. And Stan is back there, need PBA. If you want to suspend the rule and let Stan come up forward. Yes. Want to suspend the rule and let Stan come up? Motion to suspend the rule?
So move.
That motion, second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Come on up, Stan. And late,
I really didn't come up here to talk about selling the house, but then, hey, those of you that have been around me forever, I wear a lot of hats. So, and I'm gonna take my PBA hat off, and I'm gonna put my real estate auctioneer agent hat on. And you kind of follow along what I'm fixing to say here. The committee might want to consider, if I'm sitting in y'all's place, there's some revenue there for the sale of the house, because we all know construction costs gone up. A good framing package sitting on steel, somebody could pick it up, move it, drop it down on a 5-acre tract somewhere. Rutherford County's getting so crowded, it's not as easy to move a house anymore as it used to be. But there is some revenue there. There is some value there. But you may want to consider somehow tying that revenue into the demolition of the rest of the buildings. And I'm getting ahead of myself, and you may not want to consider this, but my observation would be if you could clear the site and it didn't cost the county anything, where it's easily kept until the county does decide what they're going to do with it. Because the upkeep and maintenance of property is an ongoing process, right? So you may want to consider that. if you didn't want to do that, you may want to isolate the fund. If you sold the house, you may want to isolate the funds and then use the funds later on to clean it up with the help of somebody, I don't know, Public Works or something like that. So those would be two casual observations I would make at first. The only way to sell something like that is either to sell it at a live auction or an online auction, and put some kind of parameter on it. And I'm guessing Steve did it before.
Steve did.
I don't know. And I'll tell y'all this, we give back to the county all the time. I've always done I'm not soliciting business, okay? but I will make this offer to the county. I will sell it for nothing, no charge to the county. If, y'all pay the advertising, whatever that ends up being, I'll be glad to do it as a corporate citizen to the community. But honestly, the only way to sell that would be either at a public auction or an online auction, lay out the terms, cash, payment day of the sale, have it moved by 90 days. Now, we were involved 30 years ago with selling of the houses at the Metro Airport, if any of y'all remember that. And they used to make us post a bond, $2,500, and they used that to come back and clean the site out, because all the concrete and the driveway and the electrical and all that, because getting the house out of there is not the cost to the county, right? It's the cleanup afterwards. So kind of determine, I guess my counsel to you would be kind of determine how you want those terms to be outlined. But that would be my observation, Mr. Chairman. Does that help?
I have a question for you.
And Stan, thank you, and I appreciate you being here, because you're right, this isn't why you're here, but good fortune would have it, you can give us some ideas. Is there any way, without holding you to this, that you can give us some range or parameter on what the value of that home would be, so we can manage our expectations about, sometimes things just aren't worth the trouble, and I don't know about this.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
My observation would be this. We've probably sold 20 over the last 25 years. To move. Under these terms and conditions, just to pick up and move. Yeah, I've sold a hell of a lot more than that before, okay? I'd be starving to death if all I'd sold in the last 20 years was 20 houses.
Trying to get you on the record.
Oh, yeah. No, that was great. Oh.
1 a year.
Yeah, 1 a year. But probably the last time we sold one, it's probably been 5 years ago. Generally, the ranch-style houses like this are very, very easy to move. You don't have to cut them down, don't have to do anything. I'm going to say $25,000, just guess. And last one I sold brought about 17 or 18, and inflation's hit since then. Yeah, that's would be my observation.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Stan? Commissioner Johnson?
Sorry, it's called Commissioner Vault.
Way back.
Yeah, but you don't forget.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing your knowledge to us and offering your comments.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Would it be feasible to, if we went to auction off house, same time, separately, auction off in case someone's interested, those other buildings? So that
Oh, yeah, yes, if you're, generally, any time we've done this, is if there are any other valuable buildings or assets, we sold scavenger rights to a dairy farm, and some guy came in there and took all the gates down and the feeding troughs and all that, and then, the developer came in and push the rest of it down. Yes, I would, unless you had a specific use for, one of the buildings, the county, if it had quote-unquote historical value, and I don't know that any of them do. I hadn't done any research to that place. But, and they may bring a few bucks. Lumber was high last year. It's not as high this year, but I'm going to tell a story on myself right here. When I was 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old maybe, Daddy bought the buildings off of where the fire training station is, what we call the Ag Center. And we hauled lumber out of there for 3 weeks. He hired 2 crews to tear it down, took it home. Mike and I and A couple of neighbors put it back up as an equipment shed. Lasted till a tornado came through 10 years ago. So I can remember that, that lumber was expensive, and so, there's people out there that would scavenge, for lack of a better way to put it, sure, yes.
Any other questions? Stan? Thank you, Stan. Also, in the selling of the brick house, we may want to get our deputy mayor, get our deputy director involved in this, if it's possible. So, any other questions on the sale of the house? Chairman Phillips?
Just, it may be, things may have changed, and just mentioning it with our county attorney a minute ago, it may be just to make sure that we're selling county property in the right way, so just bounce it off of him. Let him have his input. So I would recommend that we put that in the motion.
Well, I'll leave it up to the mayor back there. He can coordinate with the county attorney on setting up the legality of selling this.
We will absolutely make sure that it's done by the book. Yes, sir.
I'm positive that we would, but things have changed and continue to change.
Any other questions?
Just an observation, barnwood is really valuable.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. Yes, we are going to get to that.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I wouldn't have an
Commissioner
objection.
Johnson?
I would not have an objection to amending that motion to include what Commissioner Phillips was just saying. Sometimes if you don't put it in writing, it just, not saying that I don't trust anybody, but sometimes something will slip through the crack if it's not in writing.
Well, if I may.
Go ahead, man.
You can put that in the form of a motion. You can amend the motion if you want, but there's no other way for us to do it. So it's not necessary. If you want to do, we're going to do it that way anyway. That's the only way for us to do it. So, but you're fine to amend the motion to include that, but honestly, Commissioner, it's not necessary because that's exactly the way we always have to do it.
Well, I was going to bring up, this is not our first rodeo selling the house on that property. When we first sold the house, everybody was involved. The county attorney, the deputy director, our planning department. Everybody was involved, and I'm pretty sure they're going to the deputy mayor's going to bring back the proposal for selling this house before we actually sell it. We'll have the complete plan brought back to us on how they plan to do it.
Mr. Chairman, I think our county attorney has wording for the motion that might cover all this thing, so you might want to listen to what his wording might be.
County attorney, come forward.
Thank you. So maybe the appropriate or suggested wording would be to amend the motion to have the house sold by auction. And if your desire is to have Mr. Vaught and take him up on his offer to do so as a civic duty and have him do that, that could be part of your motion. And it would all be subject back to what Commissioner McAdoo said of coming back through the commission. And that's how we would word, by the way, the purchase agreement. So Stan would do the auction, and there would be a purchase agreement done. I can help Stan with her. He might already have one, but it'd have language in there that says this is subject to county commission approval. So he's going to go out there, he's going to get the highest bid, he's going to get somebody to sign the purchase contract, but before the deal's done, it comes back to commission through this committee, then the commission okays it. Then the mayor can go ahead and sign the contract, and we can proceed with the actual sale and removal of the house. So again, the suggested language would be to sell it by auction, have Stan do it, subject to coming back to the commission.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson make an amendment based on that?
We would not have to put this out to other auctioneers, right? I mean, because I'm all in favor of what he said.
Well, we did in the last one.
Yeah.
If you go ahead and make the motion now, and this committee passes it, I'm happy to look at that with our finance director, and if there are issues with that, we'll tell Stan sorry, and we'll have to come back to the commission. My initial take is we're not providing him any consideration for his services, and arguably it's professional service to a certain extent there, so probably don't even have to bid it. But if there's issues with that, I can bring it back. I'll alert the mayor and your chairman.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Johnson?
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't know if I can get all that out, but
She got it.
but
Vote to amend.
motion to amend as stated by our county attorney.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Got any questions on the amendment? Not all in favor? Oh, that's right. That's right. I was informed. I got to call our committee back in session. So, motion, call the committee back in session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, committee's back in session. Now, we'll go ahead and do a roll call on this amendment.
Could we just please restate the motion?
You'll
so
have to
everybody-
restate.
I would have to restate?
Yeah, I mean, I've got notes and partial notes in the amended motion, as by the, approved by
Right
the
now, we
county
just voting
attorney.
on the amendment, right? Okay. Everybody understand we're just voting on the amendment? And we'll go ahead and do a roll call.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
McAdoo?
Yes.
Amendment passes.
Okay, now we're voting on the original motion, sell the house. I think we'll do this by roll call.
All right. Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Chairman McAdoo?
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda, parking garage. Force on the parking garage.
Oh, no, sir, not me.
Here he come, the county attorney.
Summoned to speak on it, or at least present it. I believe a committee member had asked about the joint parking facility agreement that the county has with the city of Murfreesboro. I gave that to Ms. Rachel, who uploaded it to SharePoint, and I had not been familiar with that until it had been raised, and so that has been provided to you. There are two documents. There's the actual agreement itself when the parking garage and the library and city plaza were being built, and then there is a second document that is a charter of an entity called the Joint Parking Authority. I think that it was envisioned that that would be a body that would be the overseer of a portion of what you see over there. That structure over there is broken down into a number of parts. There's the City Hall area, and there's a parking garage underneath City Hall. My understanding is that is totally city-owned, and that is not a joint obligation with the county or the city together. Then next to it, there is a city plaza area, which I believe is maintained solely by the city. And then next is the Linbaugh Library with a plaza, a garden area, and then a parking garage underneath that. And it is the parking garage that's underneath the library portion of it that this agreement is the subject of, in a joint construction and maintenance agreement. The library, if I understand it correctly, because I think when this was built, I was maybe still in high school, I don't know. But the library itself was funded primarily by a donation from the Christy Houston Foundation. And the remainder of the costs, and I don't know what the exact numbers, but the remainder of the cost of the library was to be split half between the city and the county. As to the parking garage underneath the library, I don't think that the Christie Houston money was for that, but that cost of construction and the maintenance of it was split equally between the city and the county. So if you have any particular questions regarding the arrangement, I'll do my best. I've read the agreement, so I can maybe answer any of those questions, but as to why decisions were made the way they were back when, I'm not sure.
Do the committee want a few minutes to read the agreement? I know. Want a few minutes to read the agreement to ask the county attorney some questions, or want to proceed on?
I understand the gist of this, but I don't see trying to word it right. It just seems like, and I hate to say it because I've been hit with it about the landfill, but it just seems like a bad decision. But at the time, it was most likely a great decision. I don't see what the county is getting out of this other than paying for a city garage. Now that's what it's become. We're paying for half the maintenance on a city garage. And my personal opinion is if we can get out of it, we need to get out of it, and it's the cities. There may be reasons, even if we can get out of it, we need to stay in it, but I can't think of any. So I guess my question to you is there any out?
I read through it, and this particular agreement does not appear to have an express termination provision that we are accustomed to seeing in contracts with private parties. You know, oftentimes we see, you know, provide 60 days written notice and you can terminate the contract, something like that, for example. I didn't see anything in here to that effect. There's some language in here, though, about how those 2 floors of the parking garage, which are the joint parking garage, is supposed to remain that way for 99 years. It's kind of that joint agreement for that space to be utilized for that. That's not to say that there's maybe not some sort of legal remedy, you know, to get out of that if that's the desire of the commission, but there may be alternative mechanisms and just reaching out to the city and seeing what's going on instead of taking those legal steps, you know, just seeing if there's a different arrangement that can be struck. And so that's probably what I would say on that.
Any other questions, Commissioner Irvin?
I'm just curious. I'm trying to get a sense for the context. Is this costing us a fair chunk of change, or is this something that's just provided, or are we getting revenue from it, or I don't know the context. I'm trying to sort that out.
The little that I know, and then Mayor chime in after that. So periodically there will be maintenance issues that occur down there. You know, water mains will bust, you know, that are servicing the garage or the areas above it. There might be issues with the gating at the garden above the parking garage, and so the city will oftentimes send the finance department a reimbursement amount of, hey, we had to fix this, you know, here's your share of it. I don't think it's anything it's not millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. To answer your revenue question, I don't think that they charge for parking there, so I don't think that, and that might have been an original intent decades ago, but that's not what's happening now, Mayor.
Yeah, so it doesn't produce any revenue. This is a project that was equally split between the county and the city of Murfreesboro, 25, 30 years ago, whenever that was. We shared the maintenance cost recently. The Rutherford County received a bill for sprinkler system maintenance, I think of $40,000 or something like that. I could go back and find the invoice. It was our part of that maintenance. There is, I will tell you this, it's interesting you're bringing this up, Commissioner Johnson, because prior to you raising this issue, when we received the invoice from the city of Murfreesboro, you know, I inquired to the nature of the invoice and the relationship why we, the county, didn't get advance notice prior to receiving the invoice, and there was nothing nefarious here at all between on the part of the city. It was just the way the arrangement was originally constructed. And gentlemen, ladies, you know that sometimes the reason we do things is because that's the way we've done things. And so I did an inquiry, and quite honestly, I would say over the next couple of 3 months, we're going to try to take some ambiguity out of this language and determine if this is something we want to continue to do. My opinion is it does provide a service, parking service for a number of employees that work on the square, especially the Goldstein building. Maybe Mr. Hughes can testify to that personally. So there are a number of Rutherford County employees that do park there. That's of great benefit to businesses on the square that rely on parking on the square for retail business. So I think it's something that we need to take very seriously as it relates to our part of that. We do get benefit, and for what we're paying on an occasional maintenance basis, I think the cost is negligible at this point. I think we do need to kind of clean up a little bit of the language, and I have talked to Nick about that, about maybe doing some of that. Thank you.
Any other questions? That answer your question, Commissioner Irvin? Fine. Any other questions? I think parking garages, basically tonight is just information only. I don't think that we're not going to try to make a decision one way or the other on that parking garage, but it's information only, and you heard the mayor and maybe the county attorney to get together and look at the agreement and maybe clean it up a little bit, and we may hear back from this in the next couple of months. Okay? Next on the agenda, project manager discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This, I asked Chairman McAdoo to put this on the agenda for discussion for the express purpose. This is another example of where our community is growing so quickly, and sometimes it's an effort to get in front of our capital projects that we have. And it's easy to kind of pick on one stop, and I'm really glad Stan's here, because I talked to Stan Vaught, who chairs the PBA, about this, and I've talked to Chairman McAdoo. I think it's worth very serious discussion for this body to consider bringing on either a part-time or a full-time project construction manager that can oversee the day-to-day operations of particularly new construction. We have the public safety buildings. We still have 4 public safety buildings that have yet to come out of the ground. We're committed to a transfer station. We are potentially talking about a Goldstein building renovation or something to that effect. We're talking about potentially a $15 to $20 million regional forensic center in Smyrna or someplace in Rutherford County. So we have a number of projects, construction projects, that are going to be on the table for this body to consider. And I think having a project construction manager on site, and Commissioner Dodd, you could speak to this probably more knowledgeably than anybody here in this regard. In an effort to keep things on time and on budget, I think it would be great benefit to the county to have some eyes and ears to keep things moving. And if for whatever reason things go awry, which sometimes they do on projects, you just can't help it, just like anything else. A project construction manager is great about keeping us up to date, about managing our expectations, about cost overruns or project time overruns and that kind of thing. I just think a county the size of Rutherford is deserving of that kind of expertise on a day-to-day basis that would report to the mayor's office, and just like the other directors that report to the county commission on a regular basis, would provide those regular updates as to progress with regard to the construction projects. So thank you, Chairman McAdoo, for allowing me to present that to you for discussion.
Commissioner Irvin?
How did you even know that I was thinking about
Looking
going
at
over here? Well, could we have, I would appreciate some kind of background information in terms of how does the supervision and the management process work now? I mean, I asked a couple questions in the last commission meeting, and it didn't sound like there was very much. And so I'm trying to get a sense, how does it work or not work right now? And then to build on what the mayor was saying, can we have a sense for how are we finding out things? What kind of lead time do we have now? And that would seem the basis on which to build a framework for what I believe is needed, a new position as well, to, keep track of this, give us the heads up before things become too challenging, as they have, for example, with some of the projects we have going on right now. But I'll leave it to, I'm just trying to get a background and then kind of the parameters in terms of what's going on.
So, and again, Stan Vaught, chairman of the PBA, I mean, his committee does a really good job. But to be candid, they meet once a month, and they can only make a decision with regard to projects that are under their purview when they have a quorum. That creates specific challenges, and this body has recognized that problem, that challenge. And sometimes when you only meet once a month and can make decisions on a monthly basis, that is way too slow and cost prohibitive in the environment that we're in. And so this is why I was making this recommendation. This in no way removes the PBA as part of the equation. This is an additional resource to the PBA. What I am hoping we can do is, by having this conversation, this is something that will be built in to our next budget year. We're not talking about doing anything today or tomorrow or even next month, but into our next budget year, which of course begins July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. So it's an anticipation of that cycle. Whether it's a full-time or part-time position, I quite honestly don't know yet. It's something I need to get with Stan and maybe the PBA and those members and discuss what's the workload based on what we foresee coming down the pike in the next 2, 3, or 4 years. It may be only a 20, 30-hour-a-week job, and we just grow into the full-time status. That's yet to be determined. What I'm doing by bringing this before this body is begin the preliminary discussion, so if this body determines that this is a need for the county, that it can find its way into our next budget cycle.
Maybe it's appropriate to suspend the rules and hear from Mr. Vaught in terms of how the process works and now, and kind of what are the data points that he gets on or the PBA gets on a regular basis that say this is a problem, and what's the early warning system, if there is one, for financial challenges, supply chain challenges, a whole bunch of challenges. So maybe I'd make a motion to suspend the rules and hear from Mr. Vaught.
Motion second. All those in favor? Say it.
You cannot pay me. That's what the law says. You cannot pay me. I asked Adam to step up here because Adam's kind of our ears a little bit, and I think several of you, Commissioner Irwin, and if you will indulge me for, I hope, 5 minutes. I don't know if I can wrap it up that quick. I think to understand things, or to see where you're going, sometimes you kind of got to look backwards. How did we get here? And I guess fortunately or unfortunately for me, and Chairman McAdoo was up here 4 years before I ever set foot in the courthouse. So he and I, Commissioner Phillips, you came along pretty quick. So the history of it was that the county didn't have any control over school buildings. and that was always our biggest expenditures in the late 80s, early 90s. And the state legislature gave us the opportunity to create a public building authority. And Rutherford County adopted that idea and said, okay, the PBA is going to now build all the schools. Well, there got to be a tussle between the county commission and the school board, and not to get into gory details about all that, but out of all the information and the legal research we came about at that point in time, the county commission only has taxing authority and budget authority. We can't, I say we, I feel like I'm still up here, right? The county commission cannot dictate to the school board where they spend their money, how they spend their money. All they do is give them a check, right? And so there was a little bit of a fallacy in creating the PBA with that aspect. But moving forward, the PBA stayed intact over the last, 25 years, I guess, Jeff. And at various times, there's nothing going on with the PBA. You know, it's a dead body, right? There's nothing there. They did 2 or 3 projects. Well, probably the biggest one that we ever did, that the PBA ever did, was building a new courthouse. You know, roughly $72 million, $75 million, pretty big deal for the county. And so how that structure was done, architect was hired. We did hire a contractor. Then we had a construction manager, Jerry Preston. Those of you that know Jerry, great guy. He was on the site, 2 or 3 times a week. He was knowledgeable enough. He was our eyes and ears, okay? And so every month, if there's change orders, anything like that, there'd be a detailed explanation. We knew what was going on. And so that system, now we paid Jerry a lot of money to be our eyes and ears through that year, 18-month time period, but it was a contract basis. We didn't furnish anything. He was not a county employee, anything like that. It was just a deal. So then, if I remember right, the next 2 projects were renovating 20 North and the addition to the archives. And at that time, we felt like, PBA felt like, and Ben Mankin, which those of you that were around Ben's a longtime friend of mine, we grew up, and I've got to say this about his family, you know, obviously I came on board under Mr. Mankin as the county judge at that time. Then it was the county executive, and then finally the mayor. But that family's given an awful lot to this county, and Ben took it on to try to save the county some money through his department. And this is where this gentleman fits into it. He inherited that from Ben, the good nature to do it. And I'll tell you, y'all got a gem right here. He doesn't know I'm going to say that about him. He's A number 1. Not a problem. He's great, eyes and ears. The mayor asked me a month ago what my feelings were about having somebody here. My short answer is yes. That the county needs somebody to do that. I think with us having 6 buildings for the PBA right now to manage, you know, that's a lot. That's probably the equivalent of us building the courthouse again, right? But we're building it in 6 different locations. Kind of hard to be everywhere. I got a full-time job, and all the members of your PBA do too. But we try to make periodic visits and stay up to date. He goes. Now, let me say this to you, and you may not be aware of this. Your architect, in his fee, is our eyes and ears. He's the manager of these projects. They have, I was fixing to say Klein, Sweeney and Associates. Bart Klein, Sweeney and Associates. That is part of their contract. Correct me if I'm wrong now. They assign a project manager to each one of these buildings separately. Now, I'm going to dive off in this just a second. I've been disappointed. I think everybody here has been disappointed in how One Stop has turned out. Now, I can stand up here and give you, 10 minutes worth of reasons why we got here. The long story, or the short story is this, it's what's happened in the economy and the building business over the last 18 months. We've been the victim of it. Some of it's, you know, you can point the finger at several people. The PBA made the decision early on with the previous mayor and the finance director when we realized there were cost overruns. And I'll be honest with you commissioners, it's 60 days into the project, we'd already blown through our contingency. Our contingency on one stop is $150,000. We were already $250,000 in the hole. But we knew it was going to get worse. And my feeling, and I made this decision, y'all blame me on this for maybe not keeping y'all better informed with what was going on. I did it casually. I never came up here and made a presentation. Probably should have. I apologize if any of you feel like we slighted you, because I didn't mean to do it that way. I felt like this is our job, not to burden you people with it. You know, y'all appropriate the money. You trust us enough to manage your money. We're going to do the best job we can. And so as that project progressed, we knew we were going to be short, and we kept calculating, and Brick was working on it, Lisa was working on it, where we're going to get the money. The contractor said, you know, push come to shove, we're not going to know anything until the final contract is let for the side of it that the state of Tennessee is going to occupy. So once that bid came in, then we knew 90% of the problem. We had a dollar figure that we could come back and ask you guys. And I think at that same time, we had an election in this county. And so we had one mayor leaving, another mayor coming in. One mayor was aware of it. The new guy on the block gets this dropped in his feet, you know, in the first 30 days. And I'm going to speak for Mayor Carr right here, and he may kick me after I say this, but I'm sure he had that, oh, crap moment, right? What am I getting into? What is here? And so he has been extremely gracious, us pulling him into the negotiating process to get us where we got to. My belief about all of that was the path of least resistance was, and I'm going to say this, to get Lisa in her building out there. It's not really your building, but your staff is going to occupy it. You know what I mean. That the path of least resistance, we could have lawyered up, contracts tight enough, we could have made him pay. But y'all wouldn't have had a building for probably 2.5, 3 more years. And so the path of least resistance to the PBA, myself, Brick, everybody working on y'all's behalf was, hey, let's get it finished. And so I kind of had to tell you that backstory to let you know this. You do have eyes and ears out there every project. Rockvale is going very smoothly. Kittrell's going very smoothly right now. Both of them are very on target as far as our money's concerned. We don't anticipate any problems with Lascassas or Walter Hill at this point in time. The mayor and myself met with the representatives of Dale Webb, correct? And we've got our hands on the 6th site, the Dale Webb site, the one that's going to be last. And so we anticipate being able to plan all this out in the next 12 months to where it all just falls into place for budgetary reasons for you people. But you do have eyes and ears. Now, here's my casual observation about the manager for the county. Mayor Carr may be spot on right here, and in fact, I don't know that he's not. However, you've got a PBA that's doing this for you. So if you bring somebody on to be the eyes and ears, I'm not sure how to tell you to structure it. How we did it over at the courthouse was part of our budget. Right now, with us having your architect being your eyes and ears, it's part of his contract. You follow, so the money's accounted for there. If you create another department, you've got something else to consider. And Anthony, I think you were here. Remember we went round and around for about 3 or 4 years before we ever created a public works department. You know, the highway department ought to be able to do it. No, they can't work outside the right-of-way. We got into all those things back and forth. You were involved in some of that, I think, county engineer, right? Or you've inherited that, maybe I would say it that way. So I'm trying to give you all a 20-year look back, 30-year look back now, 35. I'm getting old, aren't I? Well, I've been up here since I was 24, so I'm 61 now, so, do the math. So I'm trying to give you the look back of how we've arrived at this point. I would concur with Mayor Carr to say this. We have to believe, with the projection numbers that y'all provided us for the courthouse, says that this county, if I'm not mistaken, in 2035 or 2040 will be over 500,000, 550,000. Man, that's a lot of people, right? And so if you plug that in and say, the county's going to keep building, right? You can't, it's not all going to fit here, right? I know technology buys us a lot, but it's not all going to fit in the buildings that we've got now. So it may be time to consider that.
So the architect assigns a project manager. Is that the PBA doing that? Maybe the contract is, we provide the funds, is that correct? PBA signs the contract?
Yes, and in fact, I executed the contract for Las Casas yesterday. Okay. And so the way the structure is set up is I work for you. The PBA works for you. Again, it's somewhat like the structure with the school board. You give me X number of dollars, I got to go out there and get the best value for you. And how the structure has been, Bard has been our architect, I guess, for the last 4 or 5 projects. I don't know. He's been around for a while. We have the opportunity to, anytime when you charge us to do a project, the process is we have to put out or solicit proposals for construction managers. And that's where we are right now with the Goldstein's project. So we have to advertise, and there's a legal process, there's advertising involved, there's a time calendar involved. Brick keeps up with all that for us, Pearl. The legal ramifications is met by them. We interview, we decide who the project manager is, and then we get the hard number from them. They operate on a percentage basis. Does that help you?
Yes, so the project manager who's assigned by the architect
yes.
then reports to you.
Yes.
And then, and then you would come in and advise us periodically in terms of how it's going, this committee.
Yeah, but I've been allowed,
okay.
He's been doing it. Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to,
yes.
I'm just trying to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a delegated piece here. Okay, that's
you're
great.
Paying for a construction manager right now, indirectly, I guess, in your architect fee. I guess that's the way to say it. Okay. You've got one right now. Now, the question becomes, do you want to hire one yourself and not let the architect do it?
PBA has someone that's reporting to you that's
yes.
reporting up through us. And so I guess the question is, where would this person reside, I guess, and what would be the structure? You mentioned independent contractor versus an employee structure, and then working for the county or working for PBA and just having a more active involvement. I'd be curious. I haven't given this a lot of thought. I'm generally in favor of it, but maybe someone who has given it a lot of thought or had experience with it, I'd certainly be interested in hearing where do you put the person and that kind of thing.
Well, if I may, structurally, my idea would be that this person would work very close with Adam, okay, first of all. And so Adam reports to the mayor's office directly, but Adam makes monthly reports to this body as to projects that have maintenance issues. And so I envision it exactly like that. And so what I'm looking for is quite honestly, giving Adam a bit of relief. And I failed to mention, that I've mentioned this, we're going to come to this body with an expansion of recovery court. and I had mentioned that. And Adam's been pulling double duty on that. That has nothing to do with maintenance. That's an expansion project, but I don't have, the county doesn't have anybody else to step in and give us an initial assessment about what would it cost to expand recovery court and what would that take. So I've asked Adam to do that. To be honest with you, that's really not what Adam's supposed to do. He does that. He's really good at it, and I really appreciate him doing it. But we're getting to the point where this guy's running out of hours. I mean, yeah, time. You put 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag, ladies and gentlemen, and you got stuff on the floor. And I don't want to, I mean, like Stan said, he does an outstanding job, and he needs some help, especially with the number of projects we coming online. So I see this position working with Adam, but a separate position, but structurally with how we do things exactly the same, if that makes sense. And what I think we need, and Stan, I want you to chime in here, I think we need more day-to-day on-site visits and accountability with a construction manager, as opposed to an architect, as opposed to the PBA. They all work together in concert, but this individual, this man or woman, would be on site checking on things, just making sure the county's interests are protected with new construction projects on a day-to-day basis.
And to follow that up, and that was the reason, my short answer to the mayor was yes, but because our architect does a great job. I mean, they mash the contractors. That's the only way I would say something if we were standing out there on the construction site a little bit different, but they hold them accountable. And I get the backstory, okay? I get the off the cuff, how did we get here? Well, you know, and I get that, okay, I'll tell you how we're going to solve it then. And sometimes we have to make, you know, some decisions from an accountability standpoint. Yeah, maybe the county shouldn't pay for this, but again, if it was handled the right way, we're the beneficiary of the building. Those are kind of the decisions we end up making, but we've got to have that good information. I guess my point to it is you're kind of paying for that now through your architect services. So you know, you could envision the structure. You could do it 2 or 3 different ways. And this is up for y'all. I'm going to stay out of this, but my observation is you could do it 2 or 3 different ways. You could, you know, create a department or an employee that this is all they do, right? And they could be in the mayor's office. Or you can allow Adam to hire somebody in his department. Obviously, he answers to the mayor. That would be, this is their full-time job, or 80% of their job is just to oversee and visit these projects. Or we could do it in the budget of construction, let the PBA hire somebody on a contracted basis, and then it's not an employee. Right, because once you hire, y'all figured this out, right? Once you hire an employee, that person's here forever. You know that it's just not a one-time deal. It's a reoccurring money. So that's the reason I said that. If you did it project by project, and that's how. And to give y'all a little, the reason I say it that way, what we've decided to do through the accounting. Through Mike's office is on your legal fees for each building, we're going to start breaking that up. And where you have, we, PBA, myself, are trying to do the best job we can to account for every dollar and make sure it's plugged to that project, right? That it's just not out here somewhere. So we're going to start showing legal fees. Brick's going to break it up between buildings, if that makes any sense. And that's just, I just think y'all, the more information we can give y'all, better decision you make. Is that fair?
Mr. Irvin, did that answer your question?
I was just curious. I'll pick your brain briefly on one of the questions. If you were to identify not a name, but kind of the kind of person for this role, okay, describe generally. Is it someone with an engineering degree, someone with project management experience? Is it construction management experience? I'm just, since you're up there and we've suspended that briefly, I just thought I'd pick your brain.
One of two ways. I would want somebody with some experience. I might look for, the guy that I have really gotten along with well, not that I hadn't gotten along with everyone that we've had, but Ron. I can't think, what's Ron's last name? Constantino. Yankee, New York guy. He and I didn't think we'd get along at first. You talking about detail-oriented. I mean, there's no punches, right? And he calls it out. He calls balls and strikes, and I like it that way because when you're spending, well, you face it. If you were, who would you want working on your house? Envision who you want working on your house, or at least advocating for your position. I think it needs to be somebody that's got some maturity, somebody that's got some experience. Whether that, it's a 60-year-old man, woman, either one, I don't think there's a preference right there for sure, that has been around. And it could be an architect. It could be somebody that's been in the building business. It could be, I'm looking at you, it could be an engineer, somebody with some engineering background. And I don't know that they got to be an engineer, but maybe work in an engineering firm. Superintendent, really a good superintendent.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My pleasure.
Any other questions for Stan? Okay. Call the meeting back in session. Another discussion on the project manager. Johnson?
I hate to say it, but back in the day, hiring a project manager was one of the best things we ever did. It works. Not that what the PBA has going doesn't work, but they need help. Adam needs help. This county needs help. And I'm all on board with having a project manager.
May I offer, Mr. Chairman, a point of clarification? I want a project manager, and I don't want to get off in the weeds here, may not be the most descriptive or accurate term to use because, quite honestly, the architect acts as the project manager. What I'm more, and I want to thank Nick for this, what I'm more specifically saying is we need an on-site rep is what we're looking for, with construction management experience is what we're talking about. So it's not a project manager in the conventional sense that they're in charge of the architects and engineers and the contracting company for seeing the project to completion. That's still being worked through the county. This is an owner's rep that is on site to help facilitate the project to completion on time and on budget. And so it's to give us eyes and ears in that regard. So I guess I want to make a distinction because I believe that's an important distinction. What we call it is not as important as what this individual is going to be responsible to do. And so, yes, they need construction or engineering experience.
So you're saying owner rep, construction management?
Experience, yes, sir.
Experience. Go ahead, he was just...
Oh, I agree. Just whatever we call them.
Yeah.
We need that position. It's a position.
Right, but I want to make sure what we rely on with regard to the architect is their professional project management, because that's from beginning to end, and Commissioner Dodd knows about this much better than I do, but that's a very important role. We're not superseding that role at all. This is in addition to that. So, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure how
Phillips.
valuable my input is, and it may not be valuable at all, but if we hadn't have got federal money to build our public safety buildings, we would not be in the position to where we're building all 6 of them within a 2-year period of time, 3-year period of time. So we may not be in the position that we are right now in the future. To me, I think that we need to really have some serious discussion as to where this person fits in and what department this person fits in the county. And I think that's what you're saying as well. But it would make more sense to hire, in my mind, someone to work under Adam in that department with their main responsibility to be as you've outlined it. That wouldn't lock them into only doing those things, but would give them give Adam the flexibility to do other things as well, and maybe not spread he and his department quite so thin. But I do think that we really need to be careful about going on in the future and saying we've got a project manager, just like you just said, Mayor, simply because we may not be in a position 5 years from now to where we have any building going on. So to give that person to someone like Adam and allow them to assign their work mainly a quote project management type of thing, but maybe we need to think that through, that here going forward, that how could we better utilize that person's time? Right now they'd be overwhelmed with building, but they may not be overwhelmed in the future. So if we could expand that department by one person, we could probably absorb what that person does in the future going forward, and not just say it's exclusively for that. And I'm sure we could always keep them busy as we're growing and continue to grow. I think all those things could be really important to us. So I'm not sure how that really works, but instead of just saying, where does this person fit in, my thought would be that maybe it fits in under Adam's supervision, and he could direct that person to any new project to coordinate those activities, but also in other times give Adam and some of his folks some relief as well.
So whether this individual comes underneath Adam in the existing department or we create a new department is quite not irrelevant to me, because I completely agree that if we get to the point where we want to hire somebody to do this, there needs to be enough flexibility in their job description. They're sitting around, if there's no projects or very, very few projects, they're just not sitting around doing nothing, then they could move over or help Adam in some capacity. They've got that kind of expertise and flexibility. My office will never hire anybody that is so narrowly defined that we can't find them something to do in a productive way to assist the county. So again, I'm not as concerned about what if we have a new department or we drop them under an existing department. My interest here is to make sure that we move our projects on time and on budget. That's it.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. But my thought going forward is that if there's structure to where that person or who that person reports to, their time could be better spent, not now or next year or year after, but somewhere down the road, that there's structure to that department and where that person reports to.
I gave Commissioner Johnson, I guess, a layout, some examples of whatever job descriptions, and I think he's looking at it now, some idea of this person that we're looking to hire as a construction manager or on rep or whatever. I don't have to go out of session to hear from Adam. I can always call Adam up because he's on the agenda every month. There you go. Adam?
Commissioners, I wanted to take a moment to, I feel like if you have any other questions before we move forward, I would like to get this, get it over with tonight, clear, everyone's mind up so that we can move forward with this. And so if you still have questions and there's anything that I can do, to basically pick up, I think Stan did an excellent job explaining to you kind of how the structure is set up, but an owner's rep and a construction manager, all the different parts that are kind of, the inner workings of a project, they all go hand in hand, and this is, this position that the mayor, I want to say that I agree with it 100%. We've had conversations in the past where I've expressed, some frustrations and the need for this position, as we grow and we move forward. And I mean, we're obviously in the construction business right now. And I agree with the mayor 100% that I think we can have a little more, if we weren't relying on the way the current structure is, the way it was defined to me, after the transition, we award the project, PBA, they interview architect, and then they award a contractor in that order. The architect assigns the project manager. I think that was kind of our kind of understanding of how this would work. Myself, I basically just update you once a month on these projects. This individual is not going to come up here and and update the committee every month. I will inherit this building, so it's of importance to me to see it at each phase until completion. So that's where I come in. I mean, ultimately, it's my responsibility, but during the construction phase, it's not. If that clears any of it up for you.
A question for Adam? Commissioner Dodd?
Thank you, Chairman. It's not necessarily a question, if I may, just I want to express some thoughts. But I know Stan gave us kind of three ways to look at this, and I kind of like Chairman Phillips' thought. I think a direct report to you makes a lot of sense. Having a person who has other responsibilities makes sense, Jeff. And a third would be a contract person that the PBA hires. Makes some sense. But ultimately, I think that project manager that's hired by the architect needs somebody to report to that works for the county. And that doesn't need to be you. That person needs to report to you. You report to us. So it just makes sense for you to have somebody under you that has some expertise in this arena. I don't know how we determine where this person fits tonight. I don't know if you have any thoughts on how do we conclude this tonight. It makes a lot of sense to have that person report to you directly.
And so this is our first discussion, right? So I mean, I'm not sure that we need to make a decision tonight, because my hope and anticipation is that we would conclude these discussions with a decision in the full body of the commission before the 23-24 budget year began. So we got a little time. We don't have a lot of time, but I think we got time to kind of chew on it, and that's what I want us to do. I really do. I mean, there are a lot of good ideas out here. Quite honestly, all the ideas are good, so now we get to find the best one, right? So we're in a really good place. And I'm torn. I'll just be candid. I'm torn about putting them under Adam or establishing just an individual with another department. I'm back and forth. But neither one of those is a bad decision, which in my mind is a great place to be. I think what we've all established is this person needs to have some construction experience, some knowledge and real-world construction experience, some management experience. They need to be flexible enough that when there is a dearth of new construction coming out of the ground, they can work with Adam in some capacity to help him with the maintenance needs. And so these are the kind of things that, quite honestly, I need to have a discussion with Sonia, our HR manager, and say, okay, what does this person look like? What are the salary requirements of this person based on the years of experience we're looking for? I haven't had those conversations yet. The appropriate thing for the mayor to do was to bring this to this particular committee, to begin this conversation such that give us, and this is a suggestion, not a motion, right? So the suggestion is that we bring this back up before this committee at the next appointed time with the hopeful anticipation that maybe I have Sonia come up and give us some guidelines about what the classification looks like, what the salary looks like, so we can get down into the weeds a little bit more, and that then may guide us a little bit as to where this person lands, right? Because I don't know. But I do believe we got some good options, and we're just trying to find the best at this point. Does that help?
That's perfectly stated, and I don't know if the chairman would suggest that if we need a motion to authorize the mayor to utilize HR, Adam, and Stan Vaught, in as much as Stan might wish to participate, to come back to this body next month with a job description, salary, scope for us to consider.
Because quite honestly, you don't have anything to act on yet. We don't have the specifics yet. I don't have the specifics yet. And again, I want to, this is an important position, and I want to make sure that I bring Adam and Stan and Nick and HR and anybody else that has relative expertise in helping us define what this position looks like. And that's all this discussion is meant to do. So that's my suggestion at this point.
Is a motion necessary
Before we make a motion on this, I'd like to back up. I think the basic thing that we want to do in this committee tonight is say that we need this person. Once we decide that we need this person, then we can send it out for the mayor or HR or whoever that needs to be involved in hiring or setting up the qualifications for this person to come back before us. But tonight, the main thing we need to do right now is make a decision that this person is needed. And go ahead and I would entertain a motion that we vote that this person is needed. Once we vote and everybody agree that this person is needed, then we can do our research and everything and be brought back to us. So I will entertain a motion on this position that this person is needed.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that this committee sends a recommendation, may not be correct timing, but to send the recommendation to the county commission that county construction rep position is needed, and then for this to come back to this committee, and we'll hash out all of the
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second to that? Motion dies.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to investigate a project management position and report back to this board.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Everybody understand the motion? Discussion? If not, call the roll. Several seconds on this side. I think Irvin. Wilson. I heard a couple of seconds over this way, so I think.
Authorization to the mayor to investigate in a possible project manager position?
yes.
Okay, just wanted to confirm, Commissioner Dodd.
Back to this committee, report back.
Right.
Next
right,
month.
report, right.
Report back to this committee next month. Yes. Because we're not gonna drag this thing out. If anybody know me, I don't wanna drag it out.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Chairman McAdoo.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Hey, Okay, next on the agenda, delinquent real property tax discussion. And I had this put on the agenda tonight because in the past, our deputy mayor headed up delinquent property taxes. In other words, it would bring the information up to us on this committee, and we would go over it, and he would be like the forerunner to do the paperwork and so on, to say which one needs to be sold, or whatever we had to do with it, or if we want to keep it. So, starting with this committee, we haven't discussed this, of how we want to handle delinquent taxes. But that's what we've done in the past, under the previous mayor. So do I have any input on, anybody have any idea how they would like to see delinquent property taxes handled, and how they would like to see it brought back to this committee, and what this committee would do when it's brought back to us?
Could we have a little more, you mentioned the deputy mayor comes in and puts together, or in the prior administration, put together a report or something along those lines. Could you provide a little bit more how historically it's been done, so that in other words, I don't necessarily want to reinvent any wheels, but I'm trying to get a sense for, aside from that particular approach, we don't really have a deputy mayor, we have a chief of staff now. Are there other ways that could be done that I'm just not familiar with at this point?
Oh, I can do better than that. I can call the county attorney up, because he definitely was involved in every piece of delinquent property that we dealt with in the past, and I'm pretty sure he can lay it out for us.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't have the set of statutes with me, and so I don't know how useful I'm going to be with this, but there is a specific statutory scheme that deals with the sale of delinquent property taxes by counties. And it actually, if I recall correctly, it requires the formation of a delinquent tax committee. And I think we did that. And so feel free to present tonight, but it may be that we wait another month. And I think what we did is we selected a subcommittee basically of this. So like 4 or 5 of you and the mayor that would meet after the property management committee. And it's not a paid committee or anything like that, but at least I don't recall it being anything like that. But it was just to present these delinquent tax properties and then decide what the county wanted to do with them. And there's a certain statutory notice procedure that has to be done. And I'm wanting to say that didn't we send out like letters to the surrounding property owners to see if they wanted to purchase it or make an offer? And then if the mayor's office receives an offer, there's so much time that has to pass. We have to put the offer in the newspaper, and so much time that has to pass where people can bid above it. So there's a whole statutory scheme, and I can report to the mayor and give him that information, because I don't think that this mayor has dealt with this yet. And so, Mike, what's the catalog? Because we disposed of a lot of delinquent properties we had 10 or 15 of them, and we got rid of a lot of them over the last few years.
So one of them was the old jail property down on West Main, and it was, I was given a list from Deputy to the Mayor Sandlin, and he said, hey, we're interested in getting rid of these properties, so I would investigate them and look at, all the utilities, the topography, the floodplain, anything like that. So I would, I'll gladly work again to do this.
And 2 other things. So I don't think you're confined to sending notices to the surrounding property owners, because I think we did some via auction too, if I recall correctly. And we even did an auction, I think, in this courthouse, in this chamber, too, of 4 or 5 of them. And we did purchase agreements and all that stuff. And that's certainly. The other thing I want to add is it may be that the recommendation by the Delinquent Tax Committee is to not sell the properties, because that might be useful. And you don't have it on the tax rolls, but it might be some useful piece. Now, oftentimes it's not. They're weird lots, or they don't have roads going to them, or they're underwater or whatever, and so there's environmental reasons that you might not want to, but it could be. You could have one you want to hang on to. So But I'm happy to look at that and then get with mayor and whoever else on the procedure.
Could I clarify, what exactly is this a list of delinquent property?
I haven't seen that. That might be.
Mr. Chairman, there's some
Commissioner
confusion
Johnson?
here. I could explain what this is.
Thank you.
I asked for a copy of all of our county-owned, or a copy of all of our county-owned property. It didn't have anything to do really with delinquent tax, but it seems like that's what we're talking about under delinquent tax, because like the county jail property wasn't under delinquent tax, that was property that we
Excess
owned.
property.
And that's what this list is before us. I guess maybe there's a delinquent tax list, but there's two separate things. And that's what's confusing. What you have on your desk, Commissioner, is what I asked for, just so it's a different subject.
Yeah, I think Ted Beatty's office does have a list of delinquent tax properties.
So I'll still get with if you're all talking the current county-owned properties, that's not delinquent taxes, but I'm still happy to give the mayor some information so that when we need to bring these delinquent tax properties up, we can deal with them.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Okay.
Yes, but on our agenda, it says delinquent real property tax discussion, and I'm not familiar with that. So which are we discussing?
The discussion we just had was delinquent tax procedure. And the reason I brought it up is that previous committee under the old mayor had a procedure of how we handle delinquent taxes. But this committee have not set up a procedure to handle delinquent taxes. So therefore, the county attorney is going to get together with the mayor and bring it back to us so we can have a procedure under this committee of how we're going to handle it. Handling the delinquent taxes is a part of this committee.
If I may?
Okay, go ahead.
If I may make a suggestion to the committee, I'll get with Nick. Let's find out if we have any delinquent tax properties. If we don't, then there's not a purpose for an ad hoc committee. So let's find out if we have a purpose for one. I will get with Nick, Mr. Christensen. He will get me, if there is a list, what that list is. And then maybe at the next meeting, we can determine if a subsequent ad hoc committee is necessary or not based on the properties that may or may not be on that list. That's a suggestion.
That sounds good. The way we handle it, just the committee would ask for volunteers to serve under a subcommittee, look at delinquent taxes from this committee, and look at the information that you bring back next month and go from there and try to set up a procedure. So do everyone understand what we're doing?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Johnson?
this is a very good idea. I know there again, back in the day, we had a piece of property in Smyrna. It was under delinquent taxes. It went through court. It was awarded to us. We put it on our property list. We sold it, and then somehow the lady got it back after we cleared all of the trash and the bad building, dilapidated building off of it. We spent a lot of money on it, and then had to give her money back plus more money. So what we're talking about now would hopefully eliminate that happening again.
I think that's the reason we went to it several years ago, because of the incident you were talking about. Okay, so that information will be brought back from the mayor's office next month. Okay, next on the agenda, proposed MTE easement across the Walter Hill Fire Hall property. Mike?
I'll take that, Chairman McAdoo. I was approached by a representative of Middle Tennessee Electric saying that they need an easement across the front of the Walter Hill, the current Walter Hill Fire Hall. Now, they already have a line there, but I think they realized that they did not have an easement across the front of the property. So they are going to be upsizing some lines. They are going to be moving some poles down at Landfill Road, which is a county road, but they need to acquire an easement across the front of the current Walter Hill Fire Hall. And we just ask for your approval to move this on to the full county commission for the mayor's approval to sign it.
Have a motion to that effect?
If I may first, and I may make that motion.
Go ahead.
But I see this, Middle Tennessee Electric's having to go back and capture easements where they already, where their facilities already are, but they don't have easements, is what I'm seeing a lot in our business. Do we know this is not going to harm, because there's a 20-foot
On either
airspace
side
either
of the pole,
direction
there's...
from,
Yes, sir.
do we know that this does not interfere with our construction?
No, sir. This won't impact the building or the septic system or whatnot. It will be 20 feet on either side of the line, of the pole, excuse me. And they do have what's called easement of prescription, essentially saying that, hey, the line's been here for years. We essentially own an easement, but they're formally asking for an easement right now. So,
And the line's already there.
the line is already there, and they're not moving the poles in front of the fire hall. They're increasing the wires on the line.
I make a motion to approve the easement as presented in our SharePoint.
Motion second by Commissioner Wilson. Any other discussion?
Is there a
Commissioner Irvin?
cost either way? Do they give us anything?
No,
for
sir.
the-
For this one, unfortunately, they do not give us any money, so it would not need to go to budget. It's just an ask. They could, I don't know if Nick's still here, but they could take it through condemnation. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
This is something that I strongly encourage for the committee to vote and approve. The reason being, as you know, we've got a convenience center going out about halfway down Landfill Road, and there's a pole there that is outlined that MTE has agreed to move for us so that we can straighten out that intersection. And that's a very important safety issue right there for us. They have agreed to move that pole for us. That's a big deal, and it's coincidental that they're going to increase the voltage of that line down to the substation down Jefferson Pike. I think it's a couple of miles. I hope this committee will approve this easement so we can have that pole moved, so we can create safer conditions to the access to Landfill Road. Thank you.
If I could just add one thing too, through
Commissioner
planning,
Phillips?
we're asked, or we ask for easements to be moved on a continual basis as we continue to develop from an industrial and commercial perspective out in the plant, and they have always agreed to do those type of things for us. It's just a good partnership.
Okay, any other discussion on it?
There's an image on the screen of the pole that they're going to move for us. That's the intersection as it looks right now. It's kind of a fork in the road with two lanes, so it's kind of awkward. We're going to move that out and reconfigure that intersection, make it safer.
That pole has been awkward for years, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Not call the roll.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Chairman McAdoo?
Yes. Okay, next, I want to discuss tours. We didn't have a tour today because we said January it might have been an inconvenience to have it, whatever, but I think we should proceed on with our tours to try to physically visit the county properties. So I'm open for any suggestion for the next meeting. Piece of property or building that you would like to see? Commissioner Boyd?
Yes, I think it'd be a good idea to go visit some of the convenience centers that we've got in the counties, specifically the new one we got in Smyrna.
Convenience centers. Anybody else have any idea? I think convenience centers is an excellent idea because got one convenience center, for some reason, the little building burnt down and they will put up a temporary building out there, but they have no electricity in that building. So therefore, they're out there freezing and burning up and everything else. So, and then we got another project going on where we purchased a church, and we're gonna make like an entrance and an exit to that convenience center. And I think that would be the first one we need to go look at. That's the one on 231, down by Our Rock Quarry. That's it. So with the construction we got going on out there, we bought the church, and so we can make it, I know Commissioner Dodd remembered. We bought the church, and they've started making it so we can get the traffic off the highway. So therefore, we will have one way in and one way out. So, and also that's the convenience center where the building burnt, and they have no well, they didn't have, they may now. But they do have some issues out there, and I think that would be an excellent one to start with. So if it's all possible, we can meet at that convenience center at 3:30. If you don't know where it's at, we can give you directions on how to get there. Yeah, Bert. Yeah. That would be a good one to start with. Since we got everybody familiar with that one? Yeah, next meeting.
Rachel, are we meeting the 23rd?
Yeah, she pulling up now.
Solid Waste website, the Solid Waste website has the addresses 3827 Shelbyville Highway. And they used to call it the Rock Crusher Convenience Center, but the Highway Department asked that we change the name, and we changed it to Marshall Knob.
Yeah, Marshall Knob. Okay, that's on the 23rd at 3:30 p.m. Just meet out there. Finish the tour, we'll come on and start our regular meeting at 5:30. Everyone in agreement to that? All right. Under other business, I got one thing I need to bring up that Commissioner Davison asked me about. That's naming buildings. Stand on naming buildings. I think we're still trying to go through the process and to bring back to this committee a procedure, how we're going to proceed on in naming buildings. And I think I always call Deputy Mayor called chief of staff now. So I'll say deputy mayor / chief of staff / assistant or whatever. And Mike, they're still working on that. And there's one thing I'm gonna have, bring back next month for you, Commissioner Davidson. Several months ago, we went through a procedure of naming a building. And it was brought up and we sent it on to the full commission and they approved to name this building. But that's all they did, they approved to name this building. They didn't approve the size of the sign, or we're gonna put a plaque, or we're gonna do the room, or whatever. And I've been asked in the past, what we're gonna do, or what size lettering, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have that particular motion pulled from the minutes when we had the commissioner meeting, and they passed it. Name this building, and see if there's any other specifics in it. But as far as I know, it just said, we're gonna name this building. So I'll have that pulled. But we are working on that procedure to bring back to you on naming. Right? Is there any other thing we need to bring up under other business?
Mr. Chairman, I've got just one
Commissioner
real
Phillips?
quick comment. The discussion that we had on the project manager is an excellent discussion. We grow and we need help. Planning department is doing the same thing with all the development that we've got going on. The staff, the way it was 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, can't handle it. There's not enough hours in the day. So they grow, and it's absolute certainty that Adam help in that area, and I'm all for that. The concern that I've got about going forward with that is that I think we said bring back a recommendation next month. I'm not sure that the mayor and the HR director and Adam and Alan or Nick Christensen can get all that stuff together in a month. So I just encourage us to give the mayor a pass if he can't get everything together and come back in a matter of a month. We've got a few months to be able to work on that. So I just wanted to make sure that you're comfortable with putting all this stuff together and bringing the department heads that are going to make that decision together to do that.
So I appreciate that, Commissioner. I love deadlines, and I like deadlines with a little bit of pressure. It provides incentive to produce really good outcomes. But if we find that we have not done the exhaustive review for this position, then we'll come before the committee and we'll say, hey, this is the progress we've made. Would ask that somebody motion and second a 30-day extension. So I appreciate that, but we're going to do our very best. Thank you. Chairman McAdoo says we can work weekends, so there you go.
But I think that's real good. That's a real good discussion on project manager, and I think we really do need that. We really need it bad. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Committee members, you have before you 2 lists. This is all of your county properties that we own. Mr. Rob Mitchell, I reached out to him. He had this one printed up, and then Rachel was kind enough to run the copies for us. So I appreciate their effort, but I'd just like for everyone to just familiarize yourself with it, and if you can, familiarize yourself with as many of the properties, actually physically go to those properties so you are familiar with them, because in the future we will have it presented one way or another to us or through this committee to possibly have auctions to relieve some liability, and put more money back in the coffers. So if you would actually kind of study this, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Commissioner Dodd?
Thank you, Chairman. We had this in a spreadsheet form under the previous administration that might be handy to send out. I don't know if Rachel, are you familiar with that?
I have a list that Steve did, but it was part of the delinquent tax. And those are county-owned properties, and they're not technically, we bought them because they're not really delinquent per se when we talk by an individual. But that list I do have from Steve
I'll dig
last
through
year.
mine too, because we had one, then I had a paper copy here that was that same list, essentially, full list, every address, every piece of property in a spreadsheet format. So you could filter it, you could kick out addresses, you could sort it. If that's the one, they have anything to do with delinquent, but if this one could be found in an Excel format to send out.
Well, now he said he got that from Rob Mitchell. I could contact Rob to see if he has that specific in the format that I can send you digitally.
Or if we dig up the one that we had.
But now the one that Steve had, I do have that still digitally.
If it's convenient, we could kick that out. It's just kind of fun to have an Excel because you can filter it and play with it. So.
Okay.
Make sure it's updated. Hey, any other business come before the committee? Davidson? Boyd? Hyde? Johnson? Wilson? If not, that's what I was waiting to hear. Meeting's adjourned.